The Poneglyphs are perhaps one of the most fundamental lore elements of One Piece, and yet at the same time there's a lot of misinformation in the community about them, so even if you are a dedicated fan, it might be really hard to keep track of all of them. So here we will be breaking down every Poneglyph in this series, directly translating each of their scripts and showing how close Luffy and Robin are to not just the Road Poneglyphs, but also the 9 Rio Poneglyphs that contain the history of the Void Century. To begin, we need to very quickly establish just what exactly a poneglyph is. The word poneglyph is a combination of the words pone and glyph, the latter referring to written form, whereas the first word's meaning is more ambiguous. On the other hand, the kanji reading is that of rekishi no honbun, or historical text, meaning that the word pone in this case would mean historical, though it's not clear what language it is taken from. The unique detail about the poneglyphs is they are written in a completely unique writing system. You see, in the world of One Piece, there's a standardized global language that is spoken across the entire world. In the Straw Hat novel, they elaborate that this language is called Koyogo, which translates into the official language, or the government-instated language, so you could translate it as something like officialese or governese. Or if you want to just keep its Japanese form, you just called it Koyo. Though it was seemingly fairly spread even in the Void Century, as the likes of Lily and Toki spoke it even in the present, the world government enforced it on a global scale, purging and eliminating other languages, especially during their elimination of native people. This is why in nations not affiliated with the government, such as Wano, Zou, or Tontata, you may notice characters speaking with distinct local dialects. Officialese is similar to our world's modern Japanese, which is a combination of traditional Japanese and English, though some words from other lost languages, similar to French or Spanish for example, still linger in officialese. Poneglyph writing, however, is special, as it is a completely unique writing style. It is unknown if it has a phonetic version as well, as it is suggested that it may be simply a cipher of officialese. The way it is written is similar to that of kanji, a combination of smaller radicals which repeat in different combinations, similar to Chinese. You may notice several patterns being repeated in different configurations. Unfortunately, despite many efforts to attempt to translate Poneglyph, I have to break immersion by saying they are untranslatable. Even if we have direct transcriptions of two poneglyphs word by word, there are no patterns that match in any form, be it phonetically, writing-wise, or in any shape, be it English or Japanese. There is a set of patterns that the radicals used, but Oda simply jotted them down at random to make it look like an ancient script, so at the moment we simply have to rely on what characters talk about them. As a small detail though, on the poneglyph of Alabasta there is a writing in katakana which reads Pandaman. I guess he truly is everywhere. Only a few select people have the knowledge to be able to read these glyphs. These included the scholars of Ohara, which were all exterminated by the government aside from Nico Robin, the Kozuki clan of the Wano country, which has passed the reading method across its royal line, currently only leaving Kozuki Sukiyaki, though almost no one is aware of his existence, and Vegapunk having learned it from studying the notes of the scholars of Ohara now found in Elbaf, unless some other giants like Soul have studied them as well. On the other hand, it is said that the Three-Eyed Tribe is able to read the poneglyphs through the voice of all things, as users of this ability are somehow able to listen to the voices of the stones, and so Blackbeard having kidnapped Pudding gives him an opportunity to be able to read them, even if Pudding hasn't awakened yet, but might likely do so soon. Historically, poneglyphs were made by a certain kingdom of ancient times of immense proportions, formed or led in large part by the people of the D clan. Locked into conflict with the human alliance of 20 kings that formed the Allied Powers, the kingdom realized that their defeat was inevitable, and thus carved writings into these stones to preserve their ideals and the truth of history for the future. These stones were chosen due to the fact that they are considered nigh unbreakable, and thus would be able to survive unlike most historical texts written on the likes of paper. The poneglyphs were carved by the Kozuki clan of the Wano country, allies of the kingdom, as their craftsmanship and stonemasonry was unparalleled, having pioneered the masonry of Kairoseki Sea Stone. Then, with the help of Alabasta's queen Nefertari di Lili, they were scattered across the world, mainly to allies of the kingdom who would safeguard them in the future. In chapter 301, Robin introduced the concept of there being two variations of poneglyphs. She states, thinking about it, there are two types of stones when it comes to poneglyphs: stones that contain information and stones that show the location of said stones. So on one hand, there are the poneglyphs that contain information about the Void Century, whereas the remaining ones are simply pointing towards where the important ones are. For the simplicity of it, we will refer to them as informational poneglyphs and directional poneglyphs. We saw this is in action during Skypiea, where Robin read a poneglyph that simply pointed towards the direction of the main one in Shandora. We see these ones a lot less in the story since they aren't as relevant, but they still exist. However, following that discussion, Robin realizes that the stones that contain information also form what is known as the Rio Poneglyph. The Rio Poneglyph, kanji reading the Truth Poneglyph, is a text that details all the secrets of the Void Sentry. Robin originally thought that perhaps this was a specific stone hidden somewhere in the world, but in reality the Rio Poneglyph is the combination of all the informational stones that exist in the world, which when strung together will tell a complete tale detailing all the elements of the Void Sentry. The word Rio is the Spanish word for river, which may bear some symbolic significance, but it's hard to tell. The kanji reading is that of the Truth Poneglyph, but it could also be translated as the Reality Poneglyph. The official translation thus translated it as the Real Poneglyph, but again the Japanese word here is Rio, not Riaru or real. A detail some people seem to miss though, especially if they haven't read the original Japanese text, is the fact that in this chapter, the Rio Poneglyph is synonymous with the informational poneglyphs. This is clearer in the Japanese version, as I said, as Robin literally calls the Rio Poneglyph the collection of informational poneglyphs, using the same exact words, meaning that, as she said, there are two types of poneglyphs: informational poneglyphs, which form the Rio Poneglyph, and the directional poneglyphs, which aren't very relevant as they mostly just serve as guide stones to point to very hidden main stones. In her words, there are several poneglyphs that contain information scattered across the world, and by linking them together and reading them, they will form a single text that will reveal the truth of the Void Sentry. The text that will be linked together that hasn't yet been completed, that's the Rio Poneglyph. It seems that the Pirate King Goldie Roger wanted these words to be delivered to their destination. So with the Rio Poneglyphs being the only ones that really matter, we get a better understanding of their numbers in chapter 846, where Tamago explained to us that there exist a total of 30 stones. The Rio Poneglyph is actually composed by only 9 stones total, whereas the remaining 17 are simply directional stones that point towards those main stones. Tamago here reinforces what Robin said in chapter 301, that the only poneglyphs that really matter are the 9 Rio Poneglyphs, as they are the ones that contain information within them and tell the truth of the world when assembled together, with the other 17 being fairly irrelevant directional stones. So we only really need to focus on 9 of them. However, as we are told, there is an additional third category of stones that form the remaining 4 out of 30 stones, and that is the Road Poneglyphs. It's important to note though that while they are generally called Road Poneglyphs by most people, as in showing the road to Laugh Tale, they share the same Japanese pronunciation with the island of Lodestar. As such, it's actually far more likely that the real translation is that of Lode Poneglyphs, serving as lodestones that point a path forward much like a lodestar. We don't have an official romanization, but whether it's road or lode, it's likely this applies to both Lode Poneglyphs and Lodestar. These stones are a deep red, and inscribed within them are specific nautical coordinates. When all 4 coordinates are obtained from all 4 Road Poneglyphs, their crossing point will mark the location of the final island of Laugh Tale, as Roger called it, marking the necessary key to finding the One Piece. The cross itself is likely not perfectly square, meaning that all 4 stones are likely required to mark a proper spot on the map. Goldie, Roger, and his crew were the only people in 800 years who managed to get all the Road Poneglyphs. However, on the other hand, Roger only managed to find some of the Rio Poneglyphs, having been unable to assemble all of them. On Skypiea, he left a message behind, claiming he wanted to bring the Rio Poneglyph all the way to the end to Laugh Tale, but had been unable to. So with that in mind, let us go over all the poneglyphs we've met so far, and try to establish which of them fall in which category, and just how many of both the Road Poneglyphs and Rio Poneglyphs we are close to getting the answers we need. To start things off, let's follow Robin's story at its origin with the first poneglyph she ever read, the one found at Ohara. Located by the scholars of Ohara and most likely taken to their laboratory from some other historical location, they decipher this stone and learn secrets about the Void Sentry, particularly about the ancient kingdom. Professor Clover claimed that some of this information was supported by some rare historical paper texts that actually managed to survive the world government purge, but it seems the core information may have come from this poneglyph, which includes the existence of an immense kingdom in ancient times, which entered in a conflict with the allied powers, leading to its eventual annihilation. Said stone seemingly also included the name of the ancient kingdom, something that would prove vital to to understanding the nature of its people and seemingly hinted at the existence of 3 ancient weapons, but didn't go into detail about each of them. Robin has seemingly already read this poneglyph due to spying on the scholars of Ohara, trying to learn from it, and it's where she learned to read Poneglyph's script herself. Given the information it contains, it makes sense that this would be one of the 9 Rio Poneglyphs, as it is informational. It seems that Vegapunk also ended up reading the contents of this poneglyph when he visited Alabasta, given how he parroted the same exact details about the ancient kingdom during his worldwide transmission at the end of the Egghead incident, even signing it as the research that the scholars of Ohara preserved by the efforts of Sol and the new giant warrior pirates. While we're at it though, Vegapunk mentioned having read and studied at least 1 more poneglyph. This poneglyph is likely what contains the information about Joyboy, including the fact that he was a pirate, the first pirate, and that he had Delphrid powers that made him stretch like the mythical figure of Nika. It's possible that this poneglyph could be found at Alabasta, as it would explain how Vegapunk was able to attain it so easily, as that is also where the records of the other poneglyph from Ohara were, but while it will make a lot of sense, that's still simply speculation. While Vegapunk has studied this poneglyph and related its details publicly, Robin herself hasn't read it yet, which would explain why she didn't know about Joyboy when she read the poneglyph at Fishman Island. But if it was at Alabasta as speculated, it makes sense she might get the chance to read it too in the future. Given its details, again, it makes sense that this would be a Rio Poneglyph too, since it instructed about some elements of the Void Sentry, primarily Joyboy. During the shots of Robin's flashback, we also saw her finding a poneglyph while traversing through islands of the world. However, we don't know where exactly this is, and especially what its contents are. While it could be a Rio Poneglyph, it could very well just be a guiding poneglyph, particularly as it's not very relevant, something that would honestly make more sense, but still for now this one falls into the unknown category. Next is the poneglyph of the Alabasta Kingdom, or Sandy Island. Hidden deep within the Tomb of Kings, the royal mausoleum of the capital Aldobarna, it hosts a poneglyph that has been passed down in secret since the Void Century. Originally hidden by Nefertari di Lili, she left her little brother, the ruler of Alabasta, with a letter stating, "Protect the poneglyph. Bear the flag of the dawn in the face of this something world." Nefertari di Lili. With part of this message not being readable, the Japanese fans have pointed out that the writing fits the word "in the face of this sinking world" quite well, which would make sense. Lili was officially affiliated with the Allied Powers, being one of the 20 founding members of the world government, but was secretly working for the sake of the poneglyphs, having helped in scattering them across the world, which may have to do with her mysterious disappearance at Marijoa's founding, even if the government wasn't fully sure of her betrayal yet. This poneglyph details information about the ancient weapon Pluton. It describes it being located beneath the depths of the volcanic island Mount Fuji in the New World, under what is called the Wano country. A destructive battleship built on Water 7, it is supposedly technologically advanced enough to be able to destroy a single island with one blast, though these details weren't quite specified in the poneglyph it seems. Given how this poneglyph provides information, again, it is similarly one of the Rio Poneglyphs as well. It's worth mentioning that in the anime, Zoro and the others find a poneglyph buried deep within a sunken cave in Alabasta. However, this is an anime-only moment, meaning that this poneglyph is non-canon. However, even within non-canon, we could assume this is just a directional poneglyph pointing to the location of the one in the Tomb of Kings, so it's not really relevant either way. Next, in the city of Shandora, Robin found what seems to be a directional poneglyph, which led her to the location of a main instructional poneglyph. This is actually a rare case where we have the entire transcribed text in full. "Keep your true intentions in your heart and keep your mouth shut. We are the ones who weave history together with the sound of the great belfry." What this text is trying to say is that the people of Shandora wish to not state their true intentions and connections any further due to how much the government had persecuted them in an attempt to seize their informational poneglyph. So they instead insist on simply continuing to weave the Rio Poneglyph by protecting the stone they were given. And the hint of "to the sound of the great belfry" is a hint to the fact that the stone is embedded in a giant golden belfry, hosting a bell that is sacred to the Shandya, serving to call forth the spirits of their ancestors back to the island. Said stone inside the belfry is in fact an instructional polygraph, something that is outright stated by Robin to be part of the Rio Poneglyph. It contains information about Poseidon, exploring that it is a power inherited by the mermaid princess of the Ryugu kingdom, who attains the ability to be recognized as the king of all sea kings, and thus be able to command them. them. The bell became lost for many centuries during the Sky War in the sky, but it was retrieved by Robin, and previously found by Roger, who left next to it, carved on the belfry, the message, "I hereby guide this document to its end. Pirate Goal D. Roger," thanks to Kosuke Oden expressing his intent to find all of the stones composing the Rio Poneglyph. Next, at the Ryugu Kingdom within the sea forest found close to Fishman Island, there lies a poneglyph that is a bit unique, as it reads more as an apology than a historical document. Said message is to the name of Joyboy, the first pirate from the ancient kingdom in the surface, who apologized to the people of Fishman Island for breaking a promise that involved the mermaid princess Poseidon of the time. This promise involved the Ark Noah, a colossal ship found at Fishman Island, and it was strongly implied by Neptune that said purpose was the same as Otohina's dream, to emigrate the people of the Ryugu Kingdom to the surface. Given how the ship is made to be carried with chains by sea kings, it makes sense that Joyboy wanted Poseidon to carry all the inhabitants on this ship to emigrate them to the surface. However, Joyboy wasn't able to keep this promise, which is why he apologized, but the people of Fishman Island decided to safeguard the Noah in order for the promise to be fulfilled by Joyboy's successor someday. The tale of Joyboy and the mermaid princess would be passed down the royal family. The issue with this poneglyph is that it would technically be an informational poneglyph, as it is not a directional one and it contains some information, but perhaps it could be a one-off exception made specifically just as an apology letter rather than part of the bigger story of the Rio Poneglyph. Though you could just as well argue that it is still part of the story of the Void Century. For that, it's a bit ambiguous in which category this falls, but later evidence will suggest that it may not be part of the Rio Poneglyph, but we'll get to that in just a second. Moving on to Whole Cake Island, the Emperor Charlotte Lin managed to seize 2 blue poneglyphs, which she kept within her treasure room in the Whole Cake Chateau. One of them was attained in some plundered land some time ago, while the other was found in the present year by Jinbei in some underwater ruins during one of his adventures when meeting with Watatsumi in the cover story. Said ruins bear a mark that is quite similar to Kuma's paw symbol, which while a coincidence could perhaps show some form of connection to the Buccaneer race, though it's hard to say, we're just speculating here. Both of these poneglyphs were robbed by Brooke and later supposedly passed Robin to Reed. Given the narrative importance of attaining both of these poneglyphs, it honestly wouldn't make much sense for either of them to be directional, since it's quite likely that they are both Rio Poneglyphs, even if again that's not fully confirmed. Similarly, 2 blue poneglyphs are found at the Wano country, on the island of Mount Fuji. One of them is stored within the royal castle, found in a secret chamber of the castle in the flower capital. On the other hand, at the island of Onigashima, in the second floor basement of Kaido's castle, was another blue poneglyph, one that Kaido likely plundered from some other location. It can be assumed that Robin has read both of these after the raid of Onigashima. It is unknown if these are either Rio Poneglyphs or directional ones, but again it would make sense that they are both informational stones. Maybe the one in the castle could be pointing to another one, but again I find that unlikely. Next, during Oden's flashback we saw the Roger pirates locating a poneglyph on a certain island. We don't know what this poneglyph is, it could be an informational poneglyph, but it could also just be a directional stone that led them elsewhere, so it falls into unknown. Likely directional though if you ask me. Also, I have to mention this or otherwise people will not shut up about it, but in Impel Down's level 3 in chapter 530, there is a stone that kinda looks a bit like a poneglyph. The color matches and the top writing does look poneglyph-esque, but it's hard to say for sure. Regardless, if this turns out to actually be a poneglyph, then I have to imagine it's almost certainly a directional one, and that's not really relevant to us, since I really doubt Robin would be going back exactly to that spot in Impel Down just to read it. And finally, the final blue poneglyph we know of is actually located on Pirate Island Hachinosu. According to Oda's Question Corner interview, the reason why the Rocky Port incident started was because Law found out there is a poneglyph on Pirate Island, meaning that Blackbeard has a blue poneglyph on his island, as the other Road Poneglyphs should be elsewhere, including the one held by Hinokizu, or Far Scar, which Blackbeard supposedly hasn't found yet, and definitely hadn't at around the time of the Rocky Port, as seen in Kuzan's flashback. Given its narrative relevance, it would be odd that this would just be a directional poneglyph, so personally it would make a lot of sense if it's the last of our Rio Poneglyphs, even if again it's not confirmed. If it had historically been on Pirate Island, then perhaps there's a chance that Roger may have read it too, but it's clear at the very least that Robin hasn't read it yet. So if we count things together, we currently have 4 stones that are basically confirmed to be instructional poneglyphs. The one at Ohara detailing about the Ancient Kingdom, the one Vegapunk read about Joyboy, the one about Pluton in Alabasta, and the one about Poseidon in Shandora. And our 5 stones, including the 2 at Whole Cake and the 2 at Wano, and the one in Hachinosu, are likely to be informational stones too, even if it isn't confirmed yet. Joyboy's apology could be a toss-up, but considering that all the stones listed so far count up to 10, one of them has to not be a Rio Poneglyph. And honestly, it would make sense if Joyboy's apology is an exception not pertaining to the Rio Poneglyph, meant just as a message, especially since Robin pretty much words it that way and seems to indicate that it is not one of the Rio Poneglyph, meaning that the other 9 stones may be what formed the Rio Poneglyph, and we already have all of them. Out of these, at least, Robin has read 7 out of 9, meaning she's likely getting quite close to the truth. It is possible that all the details may not make full sense until she has finally reached Laugh Tale, in the same way that Roger had collected a few Rio Poneglyphs but didn't fully understand everything until he reached the final island. On the other hand, we have one confirmed directional stone that Robin found at Shandora, with another 2 stones sitting in Robin and Odin's flashbacks that are unknown, which by order of exclusion at this point we can safely assume they are likely just directional stones, as they are less likely to be informational than the other relevant ones. That however leaves us with the final 3rd category of stones, being the Road or Lode Poneglyphs. There are 4 of these, and their locations are fairly straightforward as are their contents, so let's go through them very quickly. The first of them is found on the wandering island of Zo in the Mokomo Dukedom. Hidden within the depths of the Whale Tree, it is guarded by the Ming tribe under the symbol of the Koski clan, as it was entrusted to them. This stone has been robbed by the Straw Hat Pirates and supposedly by Trafalgar Law as well, meaning that if Blackbeard took his Poneglyphs when he defeated him, it is likely Blackbeard now has this one too. The second of them is found at the Whole Cake Chateau's treasure room, as it had been plundered by Big Mom from somewhere else. Roger had sneaked into her castle and used the Voice of All Things to get its information long ago, but Brooke had been able to rob it entirely for Robin to have. At the same time, Eustace Kid was able to steal one of the rubbings of this Road Poneglyph from one of Big Mom's sweet commanders during an incursion of Totoland, but this rubbing was later stolen by Shanks when he defeated him. The third is found in the Wano country, found at the original sea level of Mount Fuji within a cavern, accessible only from a long staircase from the castle in the Flower Capital. This Poneglyph was robbed by the Straw Hats, the Heart Pirates, and the Kid Pirates. Blackbeard supposedly stole Law's copy of this Poneglyph, while Shanks stole Kid's copy. And finally, the 4th Poneglyph was originally found at the Sea Forest right next to the Apology Poneglyph, where Roger found it 25 years ago, but then it mysteriously vanished. Today it is said to be found in the hands of Hinokizu, also known as Far Scar, an elusive man said to have a far scar somewhere on their body. It is said he travels in a pitch-black ship that leaves whirlpools in its wake, making him unreachable. The true nature of this man and its location is hard to grasp, as no other major players have gotten their hands on this elusive final Poneglyph, making the race for the One Piece a bit tricky. So in summary, the Straw Hats have 3 Road Poneglyphs, Zo, Whole Cake Island, and Wano. The Blackbeard Pirates have 2, Zo and Wano, though it's unknown if they stole the Whole Cake Island one during their incursion. The Red Hair Pirates have 2, Whole Cake Island and Wano, while Hinokizu or Far Scar guards the elusive final one. As for the Rio Poneglyphs, Roger had only collected some of them, the only confirmed ones being the Skypiea one and maybe the one in the Whole Cake Chateau, whereas Robin has currently read 3 confirmed ones and potentially 4 additional ones, missing only the final 2, likely the one that Vegapunk read about Joyboy, which I speculate could be at Elbaf, and perhaps the final one at Hachinosu. So with only 1 Road Poneglyph and 2 Rio Poneglyphs left, the race for the One Piece is the closest it's ever been.